Morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy, and I'll be joined shortly by Connor Gray as we delve into another wonderful week of sports all across the United States and even maybe a little bit international with the ongoing conflicts around the world. Now, it has been an exciting time here on the campus of Northwestern Oklahoma State University, and that is mainly due to the team only a minute away from our NWTV7 studio, that being the Northwestern Rangers in men's basketball. The Rangers have continued to play great basketball over the past few weeks as they have cemented themselves at the top of the GAC. Tonight, I'll be discussing how they've done it, as well as what lies ahead for them. On Thursday night, the Rangers defeated the Crimson Storm of Southern Nazarene by a score of 63-60, which was the finishing up of a nice three-game homestand for the Rangers. The Rangers have won 11 of their last 12 games, and this stretch has propelled the Rangers into the top three of the GAC standings. Now, the Rangers, as I mentioned, with the 63-60 win over Southern Nazarene, it was a monumental win for the Rangers as it allowed them to officially clinch the 3 seed in the Great American Conference. Bubba Furlong had a giant night for the Rangers with 17 points, but that was not all he did. He also finished with 4 blocks and 11 rebounds. 4 is not his season high. His season high is 6, but anytime you get 4 blocks, that is an impressive night. Now, Brian Free also contributed for the Rangers in this game with 16 points. Malik Parsons was the third leading scorer for the Rangers as he had 8. Now, this was a hard-fought defensive battle the entire way through, both teams going back and forth. Southern Nazarene down at the half, able to take the lead in the second half. The Rangers forced their way back and get the big win. I do have a quote that goes with this from the Northwestern News as I pull it up here that goes with this main point, as well as a story that goes with it. The story coming first, Rangers win home finale for regular season sweep over Southern Nazarene by Andrew Santangelo of RideRangersRide.com. Interesting read that goes more quarter by quarter into how the game itself played out. But a quote that I have here from the Northwestern News, this is from head coach Vinay Patel. We want to be the best defense in the league. There's a reason I keep bringing this quote up. It is the lifeline of this Northwestern team to be strong defensively. As a coach, I pride myself on that end of the floor, and our guys have bought into that, the end of the quote there from the head coach of the Rangers, Vinay Patel. And any time that you mention defense, it has to be mentioned offense, another important part of the game, and that's exactly what the last opponent left on Northwestern's schedule does. That's, of course, the Southeastern Savage Storm. They're the only team that one of few teams to beat the Rangers, but the only team to really give them fits in ways that no other team does. This is mainly with their three-point shooting and other things like that. The last time they played, it was a 72-58 win for Southeastern, and Southeastern already had the GAC regular season title wrapped up before Saturday. And the last meeting there, story from RideRangersRide.com, again, Andrew Santangelo, Rangers come up short in Saturday's game against the Savage Storm. It was a interesting time the first time they played, but the second time was not as fun for Northwestern, getting beaten 91-60 in Durant by Southeastern. So Southeastern is going to be the 1 seed in the GAC conference tournament. Oklahoma Baptist will be the 2. Northwestern will be the 3. Southern Nazarene at 4. Those are your top 4. It's going to be an interesting time as we make our way to Fire Lake Arena in Shawnee. Northwestern's going to be taking on Southern Arkansas this Friday at 2:15 p.m. I'm going to reiterate, that is 2:15 p.m. Friday in Shawnee. It's going to be a big time. The first time the conference tournament has ever been in Shawnee. It's previously held in Bartlesville. And Northwestern is only going to have 3 days to get into the national tournament. They're not in the regional rankings right now. Right now, Southeastern and Oklahoma Baptist are both in the top 8. Northwestern is going to have to beat, I think, at least one of those two to have a shot. But the only way to guarantee yourself in is to win the conference tournament, and that is exactly what they are going to have to do. But if you want to listen to more of this is just the first part of our show, ladies and gentlemen. Connor Gray will join me shortly. We'll get into what has been a fantastic day If you've liked what you've heard so far, feel free to give us a follow here on Twitch, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. That's NWTV7 on all social media platforms. Once again, that is NWTV7. And now we switch over to our radio portion of the program. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a interesting day today here in kind of not, I guess you could say this is the war room today for our studio, because it has been a day of war between two of the biggest rivals I can think of, the MLB and the MLB Players Association, as I'm finally joined by Connor Gray. Our main story, obviously, coming in only 2 hours ago, we are not going to have a normal opening day this year in baseball. It is officially delayed. The first 2 weeks are now off on the season. We will not have our opening day March 31st.
Yep, it's going to be one of those things. It's just like many baseball fans were worried that this was going to happen. Players and owners were worried, but just the way everything was happening between the Players Association and the owners, basically not even coming to any form of compromises whatsoever in the deals and counter deals, it was going to be obvious that to me it was like these first few, at least the first month could not happen.
Yeah, that is something the MLB has already stated, that they're okay not playing the first month of the season at all and just starting in late April, early May, which to me sends off a really bad sign if you're the MLB, that you're just straight up okay not playing games. Like, what other league would say that? I don't think the NBA would straight up say, we don't want to play.
The NFL definitely.
The NFL obviously can't. But that is something to me that is just absolutely crazy.
Well, it's like, the thing is, NFL is king in regards to all professional sports in North America. But even like, they wouldn't really take much of a hit wallet-wise compared to these other leagues where they need to play. MLB needs to play. Right?
Yeah.
They're one of the few leagues they're one of few that need to actually be playing. The NBA took a lot of hit on money when they couldn't allow fans to really invest in the season, especially with the bubble and everything that happened a couple years ago. They lost a lot more money doing that. Obviously, they've been trying to, when they allowed fans back in, that money was much better for them. But they couldn't afford to take a season off, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously, you never want to see this happen. It's the first time in 27 years, just the first time that they're not going to have regular season games over a labor dispute. This is not good, obviously. This only drops the schedule down to likely 156 games. So right now it's not bad, but the precedent that has already been sent from this, basically.
Okay, the precedent that's been sent is that more likely they're going to play at most maybe 3/4 of the schedule.
Yeah, at most.
At the most games they'll get to play. At the least amount, it will probably be half the season. Probably at most maybe only be able to play just around 90 games. And obviously the worst case scenario is they don't have a season, and that's what you don't want if you're the MLB, because a lot of these players who have existing contracts, they're still going to get paid for regardless.
That's true.
While as the owners are going to lose money because that's the main source of income, is that people come to the ballparks and obviously all that stuff.
Yeah, as you see here, the official quote or the statement today from the MLB Players Association: Rob Manfred and the MLB's owners have canceled the start of the season. Players and fans around the world who love baseball are disgusted, but unfortunately not surprised.
I mean, obviously the MLBPA is wants to frame it, it's the owners that are fault, which it mainly is, because the precedent that has been set before this whole thing, because people saw this coming from a mile away. They knew things were not good between the association and the owners. They were at odds for at least, I don't know, the last couple of years maybe.
Yeah.
Just last year they were willing to put it off so they could have a season. And obviously we got this now. But Manfred has been a total detriment to this whole thing.
Yeah, and it has been
him and the high executives for the MLB have hurt Major League Baseball in the last 5 years.
I mean, this is the 90th day of the lockout already. They keep in mind the owners were the ones who were in favor of the lockout to begin with back in December.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is something Andrew and I talked about on our show. This will be the second time in 3 years that the MLB has had to delay the start of their season. Obviously, 2020 with COVID, most people would have agreed with the sentiment at the time. But this time, it is going to be a lot different. And I mean, you've seen probably as well as I have the support that's come in on the players' side for pretty much everyone uniting against the owners here. There's Bryce Harper, the famous one I saw yesterday with him basically saying who wants to go to Tokyo, and him and photoshopping himself in Japanese baseball league jerseys.
Go play in Japan, Korea. Form your cliques of teams or whatever, and go play the Japanese and Korean teams, or just play overseas internationally.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be another interesting thing. The disruption here officially, if 15 days or more of the season are wiped out, Shohei Ohtani, Pete Alonso, Jonathan India, they are delayed an extra year from free agency. So that's another interesting little tidbit to this as well. Of course, Marcus Stroman, pitcher for the Chicago Cubs. Manfred got to go. Yeah. Simple. Just three words, straight to the point. Get him out of here.
Simple.
No one likes – I mean, not many people like him. Fans certainly don't. Players certainly don't.
I know people don't like Roger Goodell as the NFL commissioner because of all the really questionable things him and the NFL have done over the years with him in charge. But there's at least some aspect that people do respect Goodell to some extent.
To some extent.
You have players who like him, and then you have players who hate him, but there's a mutual respect that, hey, he gets stuff done, and what him and his crew have been doing has helped the NFL a lot. I mean, they've had their most successful year in probably I'd say in probably almost a decade.
Yeah,
it's the NFL, but there's some mutual respect there. Manfred, there's almost no respect for him.
Yeah.
Ever since he came in, his respect went down and down and down, and it's now.
Yeah, I would say if the Astros cheating scandal didn't plummet his reputation enough, I mean, once you go out and basically call the trophy a hunk of metal that no one cares about, you've already lost the credibility of everyone in baseball. Now you're just catering to see if you can get to somehow negative points at the
exactly.
Another thing here, kind of going over some of the big details, the MLB proposed raising the luxury tax threshold from $210 million to $220 million for the next 3 years, which would be $224 million in 2025, $230 million in 2026. Players were asking for $238 million this year, $244 2023, $250 in 2024. And then 256 in 25 and 263 in 26.
Basically, the luxury tax just keeps going up and up.
Yeah,
and up.
The players want it to be a little bit more. And I understand why they want their money, because if you look, the kind of rates of payment in the MLB have stagnated since the 90s. While ownership costs and everything go up, their pay hasn't. The MLB also promoting $25 million annually for a new bonus pool for pre-arbitration players. And the union wanted $115 million. They agreed to drop it to $85 million, and the MLB is still not budging on that side as much as the Players Association would like them to.
I think one of the things that they also argued about is that obviously you want the minimum payment you can pay a player.
Yeah,
should go up.
Yeah, and that's the next thing here. The league also increased its proposal, however, for minimum salaries from $675,000 to $675,000. That is to $700,000. Which would move it up $10,000 per year for the next few years. Those figures based on there being an increase to 12 postseason teams and the addition of 5 lottery slots in the draft.
And also, I know one of the articles that I read, players wanted some agents of players have said they'd rather it be around $1 million. But I'm like, 700 is actually a bit more reasonable because it's $10,000 more dollars in your pocket.
Yeah,
that was actually astonishing that the owners wanted to move the minimum up. Well, willing to do it, I should say.
Yeah, it has been an interesting day. It really has. There's been a whole lot going on that I really do not know why, just in general, just why it has been happening. But obviously, this broke not even an hour and a half ago at this point. It has been and crazy day today. Jeff Passan, I think, says it best here. This is just a sad day for baseball.
As for baseball fans in general, it's a sad day because that one thing, as much as like we have said,
I'm sorry here. I've got Twitter pulled up to kind of see some responses around the league. And, of course, you have people putting the darn Castellanos 4-0 ball game meme everywhere. That meme will never die.
Yeah,
it is nice. It lightens the mood a bit at least. But if you're a baseball fan, this is not a good day.
No.
At all. And then the MLPA putting out another statement here just only 30 minutes ago, right before we went on air. Rod Manfred and the MLB's owners have canceled the start of the season. Players and fans around the world who love baseball are disgusted, but sadly not surprised. From the beginning of these negotiations, the players' objectives have been consistent: to promote competition, provide fair compensation for young players, and uphold the integrity of our market system. Against the backdrop of growing revenues and record profits, we are seeking nothing more than a fair agreement. What Rob Manfred characterized as a defensive lockout is, in fact, the culmination of a decades-long attempt by owners to break our player fraternity. As in the past, this effort will fail. We are united and committed to negotiating a fair deal that will improve our sport for players, fans, and everyone who loves the game.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting time today. Also, people were taking account the fact that Manfred was smiling during the press conference today about the season being postponed. People weren't happy about that. And so,
can he just openly admit he's not a fan of baseball?
I mean, if he did, I feel like a lot more people would officially be just straight up okay with it. But this is just a sad time. Yeah, 40,000 minimum wage stadium workers are going to start losing paychecks as soon as day one is canceled. This is going to have a major impact. Ken Rosenthal reporting that one player leader called the league's proposal today a slap in the face, saying that the owners want players to lose pay at this point so they don't have to pay them.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is going to be an interesting, just intriguingly sad time for baseball.
I just wish the NFL players were this united like baseball is.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't feel like the fact that they've been at this long and been very vocal about their displeasurement with a lot of the issues of what the owners are wanting. It's like, why doesn't the NFL actually speak up? Because they talk about the PA wants to player safety, better other aspects like payment, many of the things that the MLB want. But it's also like, but they do nothing about it. They just let the NFL have their way.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely interesting, to say the least. I mean, it is a sad day for baseball, unfortunately. A lot of stuff going on that you never want to see happen, and that's really all that needs to be said about this. The MLB kind of tried to create these deadlines, at least in my opinion, how I see it. They kind of tried to create this take-it-or-leave-it narrative of, okay, well, now it's the players' fault that they didn't agree to the deadline. So, well, when you're giving them nothing that they want, when they're saying they want 115 and they say, okay, no, 85, and you're still stuck at 25, you've got to agree to compromise a little bit.
You can't just stay or go down. You have to go up on a compromise for that. The fact that you repeatedly said, no, we are sticking with 25 and that's it, or whatever the number was.
Yeah.
But yet the players were willing to go from basically almost 100 million where they were at. It was like 90 million. They then dropped it 30 to within 60 million. That's a fair. That's a bit fair. You can at least we'll do like 70 or something like that.
Yeah, something in the middle of 25 and 115 even. Like at this point, it wouldn't surprise me if there are some owners who probably, this is just my speculation, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are some owners who just straight up don't want a season. So they can just be like, fine, we don't have to pay you. I'll just go do something else.
That's mainly the big market teams that can afford to do that. You have smaller market teams that are like, we actually need a season.
Yeah, some teams definitely will be wanting a season more than others. It will be really interesting to see what happens today no matter how much the owners will try to spin it, it's all on them now. Yeah, I mean,
from everything I've seen, the players have actually, compared to what they've been getting previously, they're not asking like hundreds of millions of dollars on everything. They're asking, I believe, reasonable pay raises in regards to making the game more competitive and fun.
Yeah.
fun, and also benefiting players in regards to their money. Thing is, then it's like they're not trying to bankrupt the owners. The owners make a crap ton of money through other investments they have. So it makes no sense to me why the owners are being so stubborn.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't make any sense to me either. I think it's honestly just one of those things where they're just going to do whatever they can because they know they can do it. It's just one of those unfortunate times. The lockout continuing. I mean, this is the ongoing story and will be the ongoing story for a long, long time, unfortunately. I mean, they've had 3 months to get a deal done. We've just been sitting here for a long, long time, folks. This feels more and more similar to 94. I hate saying that, but it does feel more and more similar to 94 every single time.
But if this is the mindset that the owners are going, I'm going to loop both of them together because obviously there's the conflict of interest. If this is how both sides are going to be for the rest of the season,
we're not getting a season.
Well, it's like if we're going to be like this even through the halfway point, don't think we're going to get a season.
Yeah.
If they don't come to a deal probably around May or early June, we're not getting a season.
Yeah.
I think even if it hits June, it's going to be like, well, we lost so many games already.
Yeah. I mean, it is an unfortunate time. That's really all I can say about this, basically, is we've both said our piece on that. Mm-hmm. But moving over really quick to college basketball, it's been an interesting time in college basketball, something Andrew and I talked about on our Monday show. Saturday was quite possibly one of the craziest days we will ever have in college basketball. Anytime 7 top 10 teams lose on the same day, something that had never been done before, something that probably won't be replicated for a long, long time. And I mean, you have Gonzaga losing, Arizona, Auburn, Purdue, Kansas, Kentucky, Texas Tech. It was one of those just absolute insane, great days that, as a fan, you love to see as long as it's not your team losing.
Yep.
I mean, and then that goes into Monday, which unfortunately was not as chaotic. You still had some big games. Baylor getting a big 68-61 win over Texas. Texas Tech holding off K-State 73-68. And UCLA getting a 77-66 win over Washington.
Also, with Tech winning against K-State, they went undefeated at home.
They did. Year. Yeah, big time once again for Texas Tech. They've been continuing to play well. It doesn't matter who the coach is. It can be Chris Beard. It could be Mark Adams. Mark Adams kind of the architect of that defense, if you ask most Texas Tech fans, and what a shocker. They're still good.
Yeah, and it's like Texas Tech has always been a tough place to play at.
Lubbock in general is just not a fun place to go play at.
Regardless of how good they are or you are. They are not a fun team to play, and that's not a fun environment to play.
It is never a fun place. The United Supermarket Arena is never a fun time. Never has been, never will be. But today we've got 3 real marquee college basketball games to talk about. The first one already going on right now. It's number 9 Providence taking on number 11 Villanova. Providence currently up 9-5 as we're doing our show right now.
God, it's been years since Providence has been a top school.
It has been, but it's good to see the Friars up there.
It's good to see teams like them actually finally getting back to glory days that they used to have.
Yeah, and then moving on, one of the probably biggest matchup of the night in terms of top 10 teams colliding, 8 o'clock tonight on ESPN, number 8 Purdue going to number 10 Wisconsin. Now, this is going to be a really intriguing game because these two teams are very fun to watch, but for completely different ways. Wisconsin, you know what you're getting from them, this kind of slower-paced brand of basketball. They're going to beat you with defense or take their time on offense. That's always how they've wanted to play. Purdue is a bit interesting in that they've got a lot of weapons. They've got Jaden Ivey, who's an extremely talented scorer. They've got Edey as well, their center, who's 7'4". And anytime you have a 7'4" person, regardless of how good they actually are at basketball, that's tall.
That's tall.
That is extremely tall.
Tall, and the fact that someone that tall is able to do quite a bit,
it's never a fun time. But, I mean, it is going to be an extremely intriguing team, I know.
Also, it is odd, just a 7'4" center.
It is odd.
You don't see I mean, yeah, you guys have you have guys that are 7 foot, but technically they don't go farther than 7 foot or even 7'1".
Yeah, you usually don't see stuff like that. And then the final game tonight, a little Pac-12 after dark action in Los Angeles. Arizona taking on USC at 10 o'clock on ESPN. That game will be fun as well.
And it's a Pac-12 after dark game. It's always going to be fun.
I mean,
chaos.
It is always going to be an intriguing time there.
Just obviously something we've said before. Just college basketball in general is chaos.
It is. It is
it feels like with the way just how different obviously the NBA professional and all that, but the NBA is like more of like a gentleman's club, while as the college basketball is like a punk rock concert.
Yeah, I mean it is an interesting time. You can tell me who's going to win, and it won't happen. It just straight up, it will be like your fourth or fifth guess usually on who actually is going to make it. Looking real quickly here at the Big 12 standings, it is an interesting time in the conference, I'd really say. You've got Kansas. What a shocker. Kansas is still number one. But Baylor's right there. They're right with them. Obviously getting the big win over Kansas on Saturday. Baylor is technically tied with Kansas. Kansas plays at Fort Worth tonight against TCU. And TCU's not a slouch by any means.
Compared to what they used to be, they are still a really good team.
Yeah, and they've got to play Kansas. TCU and Kansas will play each other twice this week, making up some COVID postponements. So they play today and they play Thursday. So they're going to get to know each other a lot this entire week before having to play again on Saturday. And then Texas Tech, only one game behind. Texas Tech is still in the mix for this. If TCU beats Kansas twice, which is a very slim possibility, but can happen, Texas Tech's right back in this. They would just need one Baylor loss and a win, and things are going to get even more crazy in the Big 12.
Yep.
And then you have Texas losing to Baylor, pretty much ruined any chance of, pretty much ended their Big 12 title hopes for the regular season. Still have obviously got the conference tournament coming up next week.
Yep.
But fourth is not bad in the Big 12, by any means necessary.
By all means, obviously, for some of these teams that are looking for tournament, looking to get higher spots in the tournament or even get into the tournament, the conference tournament next week is your chance to punch your ticket.
Yep, and then TCU currently the 5th seed, Iowa State in 6th, rounding out what would normally be the first-round buys in the Big 12. Oklahoma State at 7, Kansas State at 8, Oklahoma 9, and West Virginia 10.
And obviously, because with OSU not being able to play in the conference tournament, you only have one day one.
Yeah, you only get one day one game this year. So right now, Kansas State would be the 7, so they would get that bye, which means they would get Baylor in the first round. Oklahoma, West Virginia would be the play-in game, essentially, of who gets Kansas.
And good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's road gets a lot more interesting because they can theoretically get out of the bye this week. They play Kansas State the final game of the year, and even with a loss to West Virginia, they would tie Kansas State, and a win over the Wildcats would give them the sweep and the tiebreaker.
So hope for that.
Yeah, that's what you got to hope for. However, I will complain about this until it actually happens in my lifetime. Oklahoma State has not won in Manhattan for over a decade. Lon Kruger he won his first time up there as the head coach of Oklahoma and did not win since. So it has been 11 years now since Oklahoma has won a game at Kansas State in basketball. They finally broke the Iowa State curse last year. They finally beat them up there. Can they beat Kansas State in Manhattan?
I'm going to say no.
Probably not, but you know what? I'm going to have hope. I don't know why, but I'm going to have hope that maybe, just maybe they can do something. Because, I mean, they won a game. Oklahoma won a game for the first time in a while, and you know what? I was actually thrilled watching it, and then the final 3 minutes happened, and I wasn't thrilled watching that. Then Oklahoma being able to pull off the Bedlam win in overtime. So I finally got to see Oklahoma win a game, which was cool. Never thought I'd say that again in my life. I finally got to see them win a game this season.
I'm sorry, in many aspects on paper, OU's supposed to be playing way better than they've been playing.
That is correct, but when you take away people due to injury and then everyone forgets how to shoot, and then you just try to become a defensive team and play first to 50 with everyone.
I'll be real.
In a league like the Big 12, that's not a winning
If
formula.
OSU does not play how they did in that first half and actually plays decent, OSU wins that game in regulation.
Probably.
Because OU couldn't shoot the ball to save their life most of that half. They basically relied on getting free throws to at least get a good about almost half their points.
Welcome to Sooner basketball.
Because I was watching that. I was watching that with my dad, and we were getting so infuriated with why do we look like we just don't want to be here?
Going to Norman is always interesting.
That arena is just already depressing enough to look at. So
I'm telling you, I honestly think the reason that we're so good is we have the worst rims in the Big 12. I honestly think so. If you look at opponents' stats. This has been something I've thought about for a few years now. Usually when I see us play Oklahoma play good opponents, they will always have one of their worst shooting nights when they play us. Only in Norman. At home they play fine, but in Norman, everyone plays worse, offensively, statistically. Texas Tech comes in, plays one of their worst nights. Oklahoma State comes in, plays one of their worst nights. West Virginia will come in tonight. They will probably play one of their worst nights somehow. Everyone who comes in there plays one of their worst nights ever, and then when they play OU at their house, Oklahoma stays the same, and they look a lot better. So I think our rims are just so weird.
And
that's my theory, at least.
Also, one thing I heard, I was listening to the OSU broadcast. I'm not sure it was Holcomb or Hunziker said. I think I might have misheard it, but it said it was only 3,000 people were there. I'm like, that cannot be right.
That's not right, because a lot of the pictures I saw showed that was actually one of the better crowds OU's had this year.
I think it was. I just misheard it.
I think so.
I think because we were confused. Did he say 3 or 5? It had to at least be 6,000 people.
Yeah, so I can look real quick here because
it should be a better night. But also, you have to take into account how many OSU fans.
Yeah, there were 10,000 people there. That was one of the best capacity nights Oklahoma's had all season.
It says 10,000, but watching on television, it didn't really look like there were that many people there.
Yeah, well,
many people.
You get this weird combination, especially in Oklahoma basketball, where you will have people that show up late. You will have people that didn't want to get out because it was an 11 a.m. game and it was cold. You had people.
It wasn't even that cold.
This is Oklahoma. If it's not 60 degrees, some people that's cold. I don't know why. You have some people that just do not like 11 a.m. in general and refuse to go to 11 a.m. stuff. That you see that usually from younger people, especially in football season, not as much basketball. But it's one of those weird things that a combination of all that plus OU not being that good this year, turnout has not been wonderful. But, hey, if there were apparently 10,000 people there, good for them. I know there were a lot of people that left when overtime started. There were a decent amount of people that left.
I will say, there was probably, I know obviously the vast majority were OU fans, but there were a good amount of OSU fans that were there because, there's always a bunch of tickets available.
Yeah, that does happen. You'll get people.
That's with both arenas because obviously both teams have been playing well.
Yeah, and also proximity. You'll see that in Bedlam and Stillwater, too. Yeah. You'll get a bunch that carry over.
Yeah, it's going to be – it's because they're not that far from each other.
Yeah, when they're only an hour apart pretty much, that's going to happen.
All right, we'll look at the bracketology, see what some of this –
As we look at the new Joe Lunardi bracketology today, some of it is kind of consensus stuff at this point. You look at your 1 seeds, Gonzaga, Arizona, Baylor, Kansas staying a 1 seed in Lunardi's bracketology. You look at the 2 seeds – and the SEC has a good foothold in bracketology. Auburn and Kentucky, both 2 seeds currently, and Purdue and Duke are rounding them out. So interesting to see how they play out this year. Obviously, we still got a week or two for things to randomly change.
Is OU in? Or
Oklahoma's not even considered.
They're out.
Their only hope at this point is coming back, finishing 17-14, and then getting a giant upset in the tournament.
They have to beat at least someone that's good.
They've got to beat somebody good. They're going to have to either. I think Oklahoma, their best case scenario, and this is still extremely highly unlikely, is beat West Virginia, beat Kansas State, pray that you somehow get this weird tiebreaker scenario where you get the 7 seed or 6 seed, and then somehow either beat Baylor or Texas Tech, which is all extremely highly unlikely that there's like a 0.1 chance that all happens.
I think obviously out of all those teams, likely scenario, you're likely to just randomly upset Baylor because Tech, I don't know.
Tech's not going to let us go off for, amazing 3-point shooting again.
I think Tech is just too hot right now.
Yeah, I don't think we got our one win on Texas Tech already this year, but
I think at this point in the season, Tech is not. It's going to be hard to beat Tech.
Yeah, I mean, the dream would be getting to play Texas again and actually beat them, but unfortunately, that probably will not happen either.
No. Unless Texas gets a huge upset, and then you have to play them.
I'd be okay with that if they meant we got to win, but not if we got to lose. I do not want to lose to Texas 3 times in 1 year.
I'm going to laugh if that happens.
I'm going to be sad. I'm going to be disappointed, but understandable. I expect nothing from this team. I'm not really disappointed. I'm just happy we get to go to the NIT, I guess.
And Iowa State, more likely, will probably be a 6 or 7.
Yeah, they're 7 seed projected here.
TCU, yeah, that's fair where they're at, even though I think they should be like a 7.
Yeah, this is I think you could swap TCU and Iowa State and I'd have no problem with it.
I think, well, obviously with almost any of these teams on Bracketology, some of them you can easily switch out. I mean, you have consensus number 1s and 2s and 3s, but otherwise it's like some of them, it's like, yeah, I can understand why you'd want to change. You can change some of them.
Yeah, I mean, looking around here, this is kind of interesting. This is something I talked about with Andrew last night. Don't be surprised when it comes to Duke if they try to create some memorable moments for Coach K's final year. Like the bracketology I saw last night from CBS had Duke, Michigan State, and Kentucky all in the same region, where if Duke won their first-round game, they would have to play Michigan State. And if they won again, they'd have to play Kentucky in the Sweet 16.
So basically you're trying
on the 30-year anniversary of the Christian Laettner shot, have Duke and Kentucky play again just for funsies.
Duke has to get there first.
Duke has to get there first, but I mean, as a 2 seed, I would hope Longwood doesn't beat them.
I think
Actually, no, never mind. I would love Longwood to beat Duke.
I know Duke is obviously good like they should be, but I just don't like Kentucky. I think is overall a much better team than Duke.
Yeah.
So
it's always fun. We're at the good time of the year where it's basketball Christmas. It's March 1st, for goodness sakes.
I will say whenever they finally when they finally do brackets, I mean, you can probably do a little more bracketology.
Yeah, we'll probably have a bigger live show when that all comes out and everything.
Yeah.
It'll be a fun time for sure. We've got just kind of running down some of the rest of the seeds here. Villanova, Wisconsin, 3 seeds as well, adding to that Tennessee and Texas Tech. You look at your 4 seeds, a UCLA, a UConn, Illinois, Providence. And see, this is interesting because no one knows where to put Providence. I've seen Providence at 2. I've seen them at 3. I've seen them at 4. They kind of ping-pong around depending on where you go.
They're number 9 in the nation, but they're 4.
They're number 9 in the nation, but they're a 2 seed according to some people and a 4 seed according to others. No one knows where they go.
They're a 2 or a 3. They are not a 4 unless they drop the next couple of games.
The main thing I keep seeing with that is Providence has a very high luck rating. Like when you look at advanced stats and things, they've had a lot of breaks go their way, but still.
But that's part of basketball.
That is part of basketball.
You could be obviously you could be the most skilled team ever, but luck does play into a factor to a lot of things because you've had overwhelmingly great teams. Like I remember the Memphis team from 2008 was just really, really good. And I'll be honest, Kansas got a lot of lucky breaks that helped them out and actually end up winning a national title. But luck does play a factor into a lot of things.
Yeah, it does. That's just how the sport works.
Wow, Loyola Chicago's on the first 4 out.
Yeah, they're officially, and this is going to be a very intriguing Missouri Valley tournament that actually starts this week. Northern Iowa right now beat Loyola in an overtime game to win the Missouri Valley regular season. So they at least have an NIT bid locked up. Loyola's number 2. If they play again in St. Louis like it's projected, that will be an insane championship game because whoever is in obviously gets to go to March Madness. But if you're Loyola for almost the entire year, you could afford to lose that game and still go. Now you can't. You cannot afford to lose that game now. And you look at some of the other teams here, the first 4 out projected: Loyola Chicago, BYU, Oregon, SMU, Virginia Tech, Florida St. Bonaventure, Dayton are the next 4 out after that. Interesting to see both Dayton and St. Bonaventure here. The Atlantic 10 trying so hard to get some teams into the darn tournament.
Those are some really good teams, though.
I mean, yeah, it is interesting. St. Bonaventure was a team I was high on. A lot of people were high on to begin the year. They got a big win over Boise State, a big win over Marquette. Lost to Northern Iowa. That doesn't look as bad now when you think about it. Lost to UConn isn't the worst in the world, but then you get blown out by Virginia Tech. You get blown out by Dayton. You get beat by George Mason. You get beat by Richmond, beat by Davidson.
I mean, I think about half of these losses, if they were you turn those into wins, they're pretty much guaranteed a spot, at least in the lower seeds.
I mean, you look at the battle here in the A-10, and you look at the top 4. You have Davidson, who's right now in, VCU, who's trying to get in.
The fact that VCU's not in is kind of...
If I remember correctly, VCU is in somewhere. Some places I've seen them in, some places I haven't. This one does not have VCU in as far as...
VCU deserves to be in.
I mean,
they've always been a good team.
I mean, they've
always been good. So it's just... So there's just like some teams that's like, how are some of these teams not like just certain? I understand they're mid majors, but still, it's like give these teams some credit. They play just as good as any of the other teams.
Yeah, and see, Dayton's another weird one because Dayton is an extremely young team, so they have some amazing highs like beating Kansas at the beginning of the year, but they had some lows, losing to UMass Lowell, losing to Lipscomb, losing to Austin Peay. Lost to SMU, lost to Ole Miss, lost to VCU.
The SMU loss isn't as terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, another George Mason likes getting big upsets this year. I guess they beat Dayton as well. Then you lose to St. Louis, but they go on this big 5-game win streak and then lose to LaSalle, which is an ugly loss. That is an 8-win LaSalle team. They're playing Richmond tonight. That's a big game for them, and they play Davidson Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Central on USA. So Dayton and St. Bonaventure, some teams you might need to know just in case, as they're going to try to make their push here. As an OU fan, obviously, I wish them a very happy loss. I don't think it means anything at this point. I mean, Oklahoma's, like, so far out of it, I haven't even seen them, like, on the next even, like, 9 through 11. Like, Oklahoma's going to need the biggest miracle I can think of.
Well, that miracle is winning the conference tournament.
It starts with beating West Virginia and beating K-State and hoping that everyone else in front, because like Oklahoma beat Florida. Oklahoma has that head-to-head over them if need be at the end of the year. Obviously, you look at Virginia Tech, Loyola, BYU, Oregon, SMU. That's a lot more complicated of a debate, and Oklahoma's not going to win those debates. But they're going to need a lot to go their way. Obviously, being a 14-loss team is extremely difficult. A 15-loss team has never been in. 14-loss team, highly difficult to get in.
I will say OSU, I think 1 year went 17-16, somehow managed to make the tournament.
Yeah. Well,
that's because they went on a stretch at the end of the year where they were beating everybody that was at least ranked. Or
like Oklahoma's going to have to somehow like upset Baylor, a combination of Baylor, Tech, or Kansas in the conference tournament.
You gotta get a quarterfinal upset and a semifinal upset.
Yeah, I mean,
otherwise you're not and that's just to get you just into the.
Yeah, that's just to get there.
If it will at least be on the radar, otherwise it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see what is going to happen. Looking here at kind of some of the other seeds, Houston a 5, Alabama a 5, Texas 5, Arkansas 5. You look at the 6s, LSU, St. Mary's, Ohio State, and USC. Interesting there with kind of some of them. You look at the matchups. St. Mary's obviously getting a giant win over Gonzaga. I like this St. Mary's team personally. They look like a Wisconsin in terms of style of offense. They've got shot blockers. They've got good defenders. They're a well-balanced team. Sometimes they're good from deep. Sometimes they're not. That's just the way they play their game. They're a team that I think can make a run, but I can also see them get beat pretty early on. But that feels like a lot of teams you can say that about, though, especially this year.
It's like with St. Mary's, it's like obviously they've always been one of the better teams in the.
Yeah, they've always been kind of the second to Gonzaga.
They pretty much have, besides BYU, they've been the second, or for most years they were the second. But they're always a team that, even though they're always good in the West, obviously you don't like them if you're in the West Coast Conference because they're always good, but it's like they're a team people pull for because it's like it's just Gonzaga and nobody else a lot of the time. So it's like, so when obviously St. Mary's does well and does beat them, it's like, yeah, way to go, man.
Yeah, you did it. Good job.
Obviously, they're a Catholic school.
Obviously, the miracle team from the West Coast this year, if you want to call them a miracle team, is San Francisco, who's currently a 10 spot. They are matched up against Marquette, who would be a 7 seed here in the projected bracket. Now, the Dons have been an interesting team just in the sheer fact that they have a lot of wins, as you see here. They got their nice 23-8 record. They got a big win over Davidson, which is a big mid-major win in terms of everything. You have a win over Arizona State, which, I mean, Arizona State not the best team in the world this year. You lost to BYU, lost to Loyola, you lost to Gonzaga. What a shocker. A lot of people lose to Gonzaga. But you have a win over BYU. You have that really bad loss to Portland, and I think that does hurt them a little bit. But, I mean, losses to you getting beat by St. Mary's twice in extremely competitive games, getting beat by Gonzaga twice. Those losses are not bad. BYU is not the end of the world, neither is Loyola, obviously. But it's like when you get to like a Grand Canyon or that Portland loss specifically, those two are a bit more
If you lose to Portland, you don't really say much because Portland's not
even though Portland this year is 17-13, they're a bit better this year.
They're a bit better, but overall, that's still a team you should not lose to.
No,
I mean, ask BYU that. I remember one of their fans were boasting on a Big 12 fan page, and then they proceeded to lose to Portland, and everyone gave them so much crap for it.
Yeah, that's what happens when you talk smack. Something bad will happen, and then you got to deal with it from everybody. But looking here, 7 seeds, Marquette, we already mentioned, Iowa, Iowa State, Michigan State. It's just weird seeing Michigan State as a 7 seed. Usually you see them in that little quadrant. They're the 2 seed of the 2, 15, 7, and 10. But
yeah, they're just not the same.
They're not the same. They have their moments still.
Yeah,
they did that against Purdue, but
overall, they don't have the talent that came through there for several years. To where now it's just like, it's so odd just seeing. There's like, it's like just like a tide turned where you just see you're now seeing other teams take the place of those obviously very big schools like Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, there really has been a big turning of the tide, I guess you could say, in college basketball, especially over the last 5 years, where North Carolina isn't where they once were. Indiana obviously hasn't been where they once were for a long time. For most of my life, I've grown up with Indiana kind of being like Nebraska, I guess, in terms of, we were good this one time. Okay, cool. You beat Kentucky 10 years ago. That's about all I got from you guys.
Yeah, it's like with Indiana, it's like, oh, we had like the 1 or 2 years where we were really good, and then now it's like,
we were a basketball power, and then the 2010s happened. But North Carolina's kind of down now. Louisville's not where they once were even just a few years ago.
I mean, I think the last year they had Pitino, they weren't where they were supposed to be.
But then obviously you have a scandal happening.
Yeah, the scandal, and he had to go.
Yeah, and so Michigan State's not where they once were. They're still good. Syracuse being down. Villanova's picked up the pace as the kind of flag carrier of the Big East.
I mean, Georgetown, not even good.
Georgetown's just horrendous this year.
I mean, it's just like so many of these historic programs in regards to basketball, a lot of them are not the same.
I mean, UCLA and Arizona had those few down years, and then years where they'd be one and done in the tournament. Kansas had their time where, they never really were bad, but they didn't have as much success as you'd expect from them.
I mean, all they've had to carry for the last 20, 30 years is that national title in 2008, and that's it. I mean, they've always been top dog in Big 12 in regards to regular season or even tournaments, but it's like, when it comes to the NCAA tournament, they're usually only 2 games in and done.
Yeah,
a lot of the time.
I mean, Duke even had that bad year last year, but now they look to be back where they should be. Same thing happened with Kentucky, where they were not to their standards for a few years, and now it looks like they're back.
I think the main issue with Duke is that obviously COVID was a big issue with them through the entire year. They couldn't keep guys from getting COVID, and also you had players who just opted out.
Yeah,
so Duke was already hurt from other aspects that wasn't just the play on the court. But otherwise, soon as they got the guys they needed back for that for this season, they obviously went straight back to being good like they should be.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's just Duke is just one of those few teams who have remained on top since they got on top.
Yeah, I mean
they've hardly have ever had a down year.
Yeah, and that goes for having good coaching, good recruiting, good everything that you need to have to be a successful program. And then you look at the 8 seeds here: Colorado State, Notre Dame, Boise State, and Seton Hall. Your 9s: Xavier, Murray State, TCU, and Wyoming. Murray State is actually one of the intriguing teams because obviously they only have 2 losses. They're a top 25 team. Coming in here as the 9 seed is the representative from the Ohio Valley. They're a team that can cause some problems for people. Obviously, 9 is not where you want to be if you're the Racers. You'd much rather be somewhere else, especially if you get paired up with Baylor in the second round.
Yeah, that's something you don't really want.
Yeah, then you look at some of the 10 seeds here. You've got San Francisco, Davidson, North Carolina, and Miami. You look at your 11s: Michigan, a toss-up between Memphis and Indiana, Creighton, Wake Forest. You look at your 12s. You've got, just interesting mid-majors here as well: South Dakota State, San Diego State, Rutgers, not a mid-major, but Rutgers has had their streak this year of upsetting big teams. Scarlet Knights could prove themselves, especially looking here. They're matched up with Alabama potentially. That could be a big upset alert game. Yeah. Iona matched up with Texas. Iona, a 12 seed.
Iona being right up with Texas, that's already upset alert right there because Iona, obviously, it's a Rick Pitino team, but also Iona has always been a really good basketball program. Well, in regards to being a mid-major, they've had times in the tournament where they've gotten an upset or two. So it's like that's a team you don't want to be matched up with.
Yeah, then you look at North Texas matched up with Arkansas as the final 12-5 here. You look at the 13 seeds and interesting ones there. Toledo as a 13 seed would be matched up with UCLA. Vermont is a 13 matched up with UConn. Chattanooga is a 13 matched up with Providence. And Northern Iowa matched up with Illinois in the final 4-13. Those are always kind of your upset heavy hitters if you're going to go with them. Usually you go with that 5-12 or 4-13. So it'll be interesting to see how those would play out theoretically. And then you look at your 14s: New Mexico State, Princeton. You got there's another 14 seed here: Texas State and Towson.
Where's Towson out of?
Towson is out of, I believe. Let me see here.
I'm not gonna lie, this is actually the first time I've heard of them.
Yeah, well, Towson is a bit interesting because they are in the Colonial. They are a team not many people think of, but they're an interesting team. They usually are pretty good at lacrosse, I will say that.
That could be why. That's why it's familiar a little bit. But it's like I still was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, they're out of Maryland.
Yeah, they're out of Baltimore County. So,
alrighty.
Towson University in Towson, Maryland, which is near Baltimore. They're in a good place population-wise and everything. The Tigers looking good. They're the best in the Colonial. It'd be a big thing for them. I've heard many good things about them this year, and hopefully they can get a big win. If they beat Villanova, we're going to have a very salty Andrew on one of our shows.
No,
that would be hilarious.
Sad part is I probably won't be there for it.
Probably not. I'll be there, though. You'll be there in spirit. And then you look at the 15 seeds here: Montana.
I'll just come in the next day and dog on them.
Yeah, you'll just show up and just be like, hey, Towson. Yeah, that's pretty much what would happen.
Yeah.
Montana State, Longwood, Jacksonville State, and Colgate are your 15s. And the 16s, everyone's favorite underdog for at least one day of the year. Alcorn State or New Orleans currently would be matched up against the Zags. Baylor would get Long Beach State in this projection. Bryant and Norfolk State would fight for the 16 spot to see who gets Arizona. And Cleveland State would be matched up with Kansas in these hypotheticals. Would be interesting to see how all of that plays out.
It's going to be very interesting. It's going to say bracket-wise, I can't really argue with a lot of these decisions where to put them. Obviously this is obviously not definitive. It's just guessing.
Yeah, that is the fun part of this, though.
Because we're not at the point where we hit championships Saturday or Sunday after certain conferences. But yeah.
Yeah, we are nowhere near that yet. And so I want to get to our final main story we're going to talk about today, which this actually happened yesterday, and this was a record in terms of I've never seen a guy get fired technically fast enough. Grambling State University, known as Grambling, one of the more prominent HBCUs in the country, especially in when it comes to the history of college football and everything.
And also they have an amazing marching band.
They do. I mean, they made an interesting hire with Hugh Jackson being their head coach. A lot of people kind of looked at that and raised some eyebrows there and were like, what are you doing? That's a bit of an interesting hire. And then they went ahead and decided they were going to one-up themselves and hire Art Briles as their offensive coordinator.
Obviously, with any history anyone knows about Art Briles, not a good one, especially with the last couple years of his tenure at Baylor.
Yeah, I was going to say
at least mainly the last year he was there.
Yeah, so the Art Briles hire would be devastating in general just because of what he did at Baylor with the allowing of certain things that I do not want to bring up again just because it just irritates me that stuff went on and Baylor basically got away scot-free.
It's disgusting, the fact that the university let it happen and nothing was really done about it.
I mean,
besides getting rid of Art Briles, which was the right thing, the fact that players weren't really punished, or if they weren't really severe.
The fact that the university and football program got away.
The football program shouldn't have been allowed to play.
Baylor deserved the death penalty more than SMU ever did.
In regards to what would be a death penalty, because we know they'll never fully implement a true death penalty again. They'd more likely just take a year off.
Yeah, and so.
But I will say the program is much cleaner than it was.
Yeah, and so I want to read the statement here. This was officially pretty much a week ago at this point. This is the official statement that came out from the Hugh Jackson Foundation, Hugh Jackson's little organization he runs. And this is what they read about with Art Briles. The recent hiring of Art Briles as a member of the Grambling State University football staff has caused confusion and concerns that we would like to address. The Hugh Jackson Foundation has been dedicated to fighting against all forms of sexual abuse and exploitation, as well as other forms of racial and social bias. We have a clear understanding of the role that coaches and others who have a position of trust play in the lives of those they meet. We also know and understand the process of identifying risks, helping others to heal, and the importance of prevention. We believe that through the hiring of Coach Briles and the well-developed programs we have in place, this hire will be instrumental in teaching others the importance of knowing how to prevent victimization, proper reporting procedures, provide adequate resources to individuals who've been victimized, and develop strong law enforcement partnerships within the community. This recent hire of Coach Briles is a testament to the importance of these key factors. Forgiveness. We believe that all are deserving of forgiveness, and without it, healing cannot begin. Redemption follows forgiveness. Going from surviving an experience into thriving through new experiences requires a restoration of faith and an opportunity for improvement, enlightenment. It is our own experiences that give us the wisdom to teach others how to live in a world of respect and honor. As we move forward together with Coach Briles, we ask that people keep in mind that no matter your views on this topic, please remember that people can and often do become re-traumatized and re-victimized by statements which may or may not be accurate. We will continue to support Coach Briles and all victims of assault, violence, social and racial injustices, and will continue to provide equal opportunity for healing for everyone. Obviously, Mike and Perkins here, Art of the Bad Deal. Let me tell you. No one should ever have hired Art Briles. Whoever greenlit this idea deserves to also be fired. If you thought hiring Art Briles was an actual good idea and you're justified, it's time for, no, you don't ever bring him back, ever, for what he did at Baylor and what he can do and what he allowed. That moral character should not ever happen again.
Look, the only way people are ever going to forgive Art Briles is if he just never coaches again, or just no one hears from him again.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no always. I get here's the idea. The idea of why they hired him is because the coaching experience, that stuff. I understand why that's what they looked at, but you got to also realize the baggage that comes with him. the fact that he was even able to coach at a high school was astonishing. It's like, that's you keep him away from football or just away from a lot of other things. He needs to go find something else to go make a living if he even does that.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those that, and then the next day, Grambling tried to deny that they were hiring Art Briles, while their football department was like, yeah, we hired him. So this weird friction between the university and the athletic department where both sides were saying two completely different things. And then officially yesterday, about 24 hours now, officially 25 to be exact, Art Briles no longer going to be the offensive coordinator at Grambling. They've decided this is not going to happen. He basically got hired and fired in the span of about 3 days.
I'm sorry, but I get Art Briles wants to do coaching on college level again, but it's like
no.
But it's like you do realize it's never going to happen because of what you did and what you allowed. I'm sorry, but you can't. As much as most people want to believe in second chances, there's just things you just can't come back from.
Yeah, I mean there are people you can give second chances to. I do.
Ones you just can't.
I do believe in second chances, but not for people who have not shown the willingness to change. And I've not seen that willingness from Art Briles.
Well, and also we just don't pay attention to him.
That and the fact that we don't pay attention to him, the fact that they allowed him to coach a high school, I think was just sickening in general. I think having him around anywhere is a horrendous idea. That's not him being in his own house. It is.
I feel bad for the relatives who have to hear all that crap about him because they don't deserve it.
Except for Kendall, he was a part of it too. But
okay, then yes, great.
Except for his son, but that's about it. Like most of that Baylor coaching staff, just absolutely no.
They knew what happened.
They knew what would happen, and it just it's just sickening. It's just despicable. It is every word you can say, either not nice to very angry.
Things we can't say.
Things I cannot say on this platform.
I mean, if we could, we would.
I mean, there are not enough words to describe how bad of a person Art Briles is just the entire Baylor situation. But
I mean, all you have to do is just say he let this stuff happen, and that's all I need to know about his character.
Yeah, and the fact that the athletic director got hired by Liberty University of all people, Christian school that hires people who help cover up sexual abuse crimes. But
that's nothing new for Christian.
I mean, that's nothing new for Liberty. They banned lava lamps because they're possession of Satan or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's way off topic. That's a story for another day. What I can tell you is we've got an interesting game going on right now. Providence and Villanova. Villanova up 35-26 on Providence. Providence has already clinched the Big East, but as you see here, Villanova right behind them. This is going to be an interesting fight for it, a slugfest here. Both teams not even shooting 28% from three. So this is what we call a defensive battle for sure, ladies and gentlemen.
Seems like a lot of scoring in the paint.
Yeah.
In the mid-range.
And then the other game before we get on out of here to let you out with an interesting score, Tennessee and Georgia are tied at 35. Wow. Now, there's a reason that this is surprising. Number one, Tennessee's the number 13 team in the country. The other reason is Georgia's won 6 games. Just 6. They've won 1 conference game. 1. You wanted to take a wild guess who that one was? It's right here. It's Alabama. I didn't try to hide it from you. I was trying to see if you were going to look at it.
Yeah, I saw.
They beat Alabama somehow.
I was looking up some other stories international. This has pretty much been a day late, or probably have announced it a couple days ago. But FIFA, who is I say arguably one of the worst organizations in regards to international sports, has basically officially banned Russia from qualifying for the World Cup.
Yeah, and I know
and obviously this is sanctions toward a lot of other stuff that don't really want to. We all know about the stuff that's been going on in Ukraine, but basically Russia and a lot of team sports has been banned as a result.
Yeah, I know the Olympic international community was looking to do it. I believe for Russia and Belarus as well. Finland was leading the charge to get them kicked out of the professional hockey for 2 years. And I can understand why. That's a scary situation.
I think the likely scenario is they could be able to do that, but I feel like the Storm's gonna things are gonna stop to the point where they're not gonna be able to get everything banned for Russia. But I'd say if you ban them from hockey, that's gonna really take a hit for regards to their sports.
I know the NHL released a statement saying they obviously condemn all the stuff happening in Russia, Ukraine, as much as some of the Russian players and all that. They're not going to ban anyone, obviously, from the league. They're just going to kind of shut off access to Russia for a little bit.
Yeah,
but they're obviously not going to make, someone like Ovechkin, okay, you get to choose between your family having a safe life in Russia and, everything else going on.
And also, I think, though, I will say some people are using the excuse that, well, other Russian players are open about what's going on. Well, maybe they have less to risk for.
Yeah, I was like, some of them, it might just be them, and that's it.
It's like, because Ovechkin, it's like, I don't know what his situation is, but obviously in the past he openly supported Putin, but part of me feels like that was more of a publicity thing rather than actually what he truly thinks, but who knows? I don't know. I'm not Ovechkin. I don't know him personally. I don't know what he actually thinks of in regards to all that situation.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be an interesting scenario.
There's some people that are like, please cut Ovechkin's contract. I'm like, that is a horrible idea. First of all, you owe him several money in dead cap because if you cut his contract, you basically have to fork up a lot of money to give to him because in the deal, obviously, you cut someone's contract, you got to pay them the sum that they are owed, unless there's a good reason for you to actually cut, like, for instance, commit a crime, like a very heinous crime. You can get cut and not get paid for it.
Yeah.
But Ovechkin just not saying anything isn't enough to warrant not paying him.
Yeah.
Because if you cut him or release him, you have to give him the money that he's owed, and that's going to set the Capitals back a few years because they obviously you lost your best player, so that already hurts you for playing. But also, how are you going to replace him because you can't get anyone to replace that contract, or at least equate to it. So it's just dumb.
It will be interesting to see for sure. A few more scores before we get on out of here. Oklahoma currently up 15-10 on West Virginia, 11:20 to go in the first half there. Kentucky up 24-18 on Ole Miss, 11 minutes to go in the first half there, and 12 minutes to go in the first half. Ohio State with a 15-12 lead on Nebraska.
And with halftime being official, Villanova's up 40-26.
Yeah, Villanova up 40-26 on Providence. So we are just about ready to wrap it up here. It has been an interesting time. We've been all around sports today. I do want to say, before we get out of here, once again, if you are not here for the beginning of the broadcast, Northwestern men's basketball, women's basketball as well, this Friday in Shawnee is going to be a big time thing for our university. They'll be playing at 2:15 Friday. The boys will be taking on Southern Arkansas, and on the girls' side, it'll be the Lady Rangers taking on Harding. That will be at 8 o'clock Friday night. You can listen to both of those games on 105.7 here in Alva. Just search at alvaradio.com. It will be probably one of the most monumental things, at least for our campus basketball-wise. This is the first time that both the men's and women's teams have gone in the same year. So if you are listening and you know anyone planning on going to the game, if you want to come on down, it would be an amazing time. I would recommend it. Try to get as many people as we can down there supporting Northwestern. It's only a 3-hour drive from here in Alva. It is going to be a fun time. We will hopefully be back here Tuesday talking about having fun at that tournament as much as I'd love to. I do not know what is going to happen there. It should be fun. It'll be great basketball. I obviously am going to advertise it because I like basketball. I like seeing.
I like watching basketball.
Yeah,
especially being there in person.
Yeah, so being there in person would be lovely, I think is the best way to put it. So hopefully everything goes well for Northwestern. Obviously, love to see you down there if you make the trip. Obviously, if you can't, listen to it on the radio wherever you can, whether it be here in Alva itself or somewhere online at 105.7 KRDR, Classic Hits, whatever you want to call it. We have a lot of names for our radio station.
Yeah, we have a lot of names for our radio station.
We have a lot of names for it, but what we can tell you is until next time, have a great night, everybody, and ride, Rangers, ride.